What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch in the Rube, presented as always by Pure Options Craft Cannabis. As you get ready for March Madness, as you get ready for the Big Ten tournament, the stress, the joy, whatever it comes with, don't go through it. Let me try that again, Jason. Let me fix that in post. Don't go through it without Pure Options Craft Cannabis. I'm telling you the difference in quality and service. Go to any Pure Options location. You can find them at pureoptions.com. Just download the app on your phone. That's the easiest way to get them. Join the Pure Perks loyalty program. And let Pure Options guide you through March. Also, our Wednesday afternoon show brought to you by our friends at Firekeepers and the Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app. If you're thinking about betting the Big Ten tournament games, be wary. Conference tournaments are always dicey. I tell you, over the years, I've lost lots of money on conference tournaments. Sit it out. Bet the NCAA tournament. It's the better way to go. But if you do want to dabble, and we'll talk about those potential bets as those opportunities arise, download the Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app and enjoy that today. Also, our Wednesday afternoon show brought to you by our friends at Front 43 and Cask & Company. Front 43 Neighborhood Pub and Cask & Company Kitchen and Bar, just north of Frandor on East Saginaw and Lansing. A terrific place to saddle up, watch great, all the games this weekend, next week. You start getting mid-afternoon games, duck out at lunch, head over to Front 43 and Cask & Company. Outstanding menu and drink specials, great TV setup in both venues, two adjoining venues, one terrific menu. Jason, how you doing, brother? I do hear your voice in my head when I take a shit.
Yeah, we don't have enough time for all of that.
What's up, buddy? I saw that you were in your old stomping grounds, the LCC, last night with the hoop team. Did you have any ambition to maybe go back and try to do play-by-play or,
I thought about it.
Like half.
There was a radio crew there from Glen Oaks, and I thought, man, that looks fun.
Do you guys mind, or
can I jump in?
Just grab a headset. That would have been great, man. You should have did that.
No,
I'm sorry. Who are you? Are you Graham Couch?
It's fun to be there. It's a place that I cut my teeth a little bit and got a taste of this business, and realized I think I'm going to like this, and so. And it gave me a lot of opportunities. I would always sell LCC to anybody who's looking. Yeah. I mean, at the Lookout student newspaper, I know other people since then who have gotten their start there and are working in journalism and sports journalism. And WLNZ, the radio station.
It's a lot cheaper to go there, too.
Yep.
Right?
Great opportunity. Great opportunity. I think we're going to have a fun show today. We're going to have Ant Wright on in a little bit. And many of you know Ant had really, I think, poignant voice on college hoops, Michigan State hoops, Big Ten hoops. I mean, he just, people know him. He's great at analyzing this stuff. Played at U of M, he knows ball, so to speak. So we're going to talk about Michigan State, Michigan, the Big Ten, what's coming ahead in the NCAA tournament in a little bit with him.
So when we say this guy knows ball, he actually knows ball.
Not like me.
Play at Michigan.
Yeah, just faking it. Yeah, right. A little different.
Well, you can relate with your morning pickup games. I'm sure you and Ant Wright can.
100%.
Yeah.
No, delusional baller here, real baller there. So
Right.
We'll have him on and we'll talk in a little bit. And we'll talk some more MSU basketball heading into that. Before we get to that, though, what we are betting this weekend, presented by Firekeepers and the Firekeepers Sportsbook app. Jason, are you aware of anything you're going to be betting this weekend?
Have we figured out, as your boy Ken Palm, has he figured out what the spread is for tomorrow night, Iowa, Michigan State?
It's probably going to be MSU about -7.
Ooh, wow.
Big number.
That might get me out. I know Iowa's ass, but they've been off for, a week? So I might sprinkle on that. It just depends. Oh, man, 7. That would probably get me out. Arnold Palmer golf tournament this weekend. I just have 3. I do the top 20. I do a couple guys at top 20 because I'm more of a, I don't know. I think I've grown as a bettor, Graham. I used to, fire off, try to get a winner here, maybe a top 5 finish. That's too tough. How about a top 20? Patrick Cantlay, Justin Thomas, Matt Fitzpatrick, all in the top 20, plus 869. A little sprinkle, just a little $15 bet on that. We'll pay $145 36 for this weekend's golf
I
tournament.
love it. That sounds like
I
good fun.
usually wait till after the second round to do some of these, but, I don't know. I've gotten super into golf this year. I've watched every tournament, so every round.
Not surprisingly, I've got a soccer bet for you. Aston Villa, which just had a great showing in the Champions League, is at Brentford at 12:30 on Saturday. And Aston Villa does not juggle the Champions League and Premier League well together. Like, they just don't. Their record, I don't have it offhand, but it's shit. Like, when they play in the Premier League after a Champions League game, they do not do well. And Brentford's a good team. They're at home. And you can get that, on the Asian line plus or minus 0.25. Basically, you can get it close to even money, meaning if it's a pick 'em, so if I don't want to get all into it. Basically, bet Brentford.
Asian line.
Yeah, bet Brentford to beat Aston Villa this week. I think that's my play. And then for Dominic, a 2009 Graham bet that may be out there for people. Liverpool on the money line is a minus 915 at home against Southampton. That's one of those, like, if you're really ballsy, this 2009 Graham would have put $915 on that to win 100. It's one of those type of games. 2025 Graham would never do that, and I'm not advising people to do that. I'm just saying if you want to throw that, like if you've got a parlay with like 6 teams and you're doing that sort of thing, throw Liverpool minus 915 in there and just have some
Sounds
fun.
like a Harry Gagnon classic when he needs to break out of a slump or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is what we're betting this week. Presented by. I'm really struggling with the live reads. I don't know what's going on. Presented by our friends at Firekeepers and the Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app. You can always just head on down also to Daisy's Taproom and Sportsbook off I-94 in Battle Creek. Fantastic in-person sportsbook experience. Don't need to go to Vegas. It's right here in Michigan. All right, so before we get to Ant, and we'll talk some MSU hoops later as well here, the story of the day is that Michigan State football is playing its finale against Maryland next season at Ford Field on Thanksgiving weekend. So it moved a game like it was moved against Penn State 2 years ago to Ford Field against Maryland. And, I have mixed feelings about this. 2 years ago when it happened, and 2 years ago the difference was the Big Ten and NBC wanted Michigan State to do it, and they obliged. Well, it turned out a lot of people kind of liked it. It's the end of the year. Now, it was a dismal product on the field.
Right.
But it's the end of the year. It's cold as heck. It's an odd weekend anyway. Students are away. And it was something people enjoyed sort of as a one-off. The following year, this past season, again, season's not going great. Game wound up being awful against Rutgers. It was cold. It was miserable out there. Although people going in didn't know it was going to be that bad against Rutgers. And the crowd was not great. Like if there was this argument to be made that the 7th home game at Spartan Stadium was sacred, that was the time to make it, to show up anyway. And I'm not saying it had to be a packed house against Rutgers at the end of a 5-7 season or whatever. Like, I'm just saying it didn't. The way it looked was as bad as ever out there. First year coach, it wasn't great. And I'm not saying that's anybody's fault again, but that weekend is tricky. And hopefully at some point, because of the college football playoff and the calendar needing to change to move it up a little bit, the whole season will start a week earlier. The season will end a week earlier. And this Thanksgiving weekend with the students away and getting that going won't even exist anymore in college football. And that'll take care of any issue you have. But right now, you have a situation where it's a huge financial win for Michigan State. It's one of their better, I think, they had a really nice, it makes financial sense. I think that's fair to say, for them to play that game at Ford Field. And then you have people seeming to like it, which I thought they would once they did it. And so you've got a situation where it makes sense to do it. Now, I understand the argument against it, and there's some people who will say, work on the Spartan Stadium game day experience. It's not great. Work on making that a winning product. If you win, people will be there. If you make the experience better, and it is better in certain, places, then there won't be poor showings at crowds. That's where the energy should be spent. And then you get other people who will say the thing online, not a serious program if you have to do this, and some of that's even Michigan State fans, like if you can't pack your stadium, not a serious program if you got to move it to Ford Field. Here's what I would say to that. Don't worry about what other people do, what other people have. I remember when I used to cover the Mid-American Conference when I lived in Kalamazoo. You remember that?
I do. Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that used to happen with MAC women's basketball back in the day is in the MAC meetings, you'd have these conversations, and the question always became, what do the men have? It was about having what they had equally for like the conference tournament and other things instead of what's best for us. Where's our fan base strongest? What's the best venue for us? What makes the best experience for our students? That was the wrong questions were often asked. And eventually they got there, but it took a while. It took playing in a pro arena on Tuesday afternoon at noon in front of 12 fans for a couple of years to realize that ain't it. I would say this to people who are, I know everything gets measured against Michigan or Ohio State or Notre Dame, mostly Michigan. You don't have, if you're Michigan State, you don't have a rival to end the season with. They took the Penn State thing away. That could have been great if they just kept it. Now you've played 3 straight years. This will be playing the final weekend at home, which stinks. I think it's 4 out of 5 years. It's not great. But worry about what's best for you and your situation. Don't worry about anybody else. What's best, I think, for Michigan State in the present is to be creative and find a way to make that last game a decent experience. And the players want to be at Ford Field. They did 2 years ago. Players are always going to opt for the pro venue indoors. Michigan State basketball players love playing it down at LCA. Like that's always going to be there. The coaches want it. It's a better experience. I think it's not a bad thing to recruit to. It's an odd weekend. People are out of their normal routines. It's not, I think it stinks for the MHSA maybe a little bit, but because they have to play on Friday, Sunday now for games for the state finals for high school. But for Michigan State, like it's better than what we saw last year against Rutgers. And could MSU do things on their ends to make that a better experience? Probably, in terms of winning football. Could the Big Ten give MSU a freaking better opponent than Maryland? Yeah. Could the Big Ten not always have Michigan State hosting that weekend? Yeah, it's not great. But it is the way it is this year. And I think the move makes sense. It makes sense for MSU financially. I know that. And I think more of you than like it than don't. And there are people, if you're on the west side of the state, if you're up north, whatever it might be, if you're in Lansing, you may have a tailgate you love. And MSU does need to make sure season tickets, are all that stuff's properly communicated and the price is adjusted and all that sort of stuff. That stuff needs to be done at a high level. And it's being done early enough this year in terms of that game that should be able to be done. But to me, it just, I don't know, it doesn't bother me.
But are you concerned at all about the things that are surrounding it? Because there is 4 days of football that they're promoting, and it's just like, with students out of town, right? Like, is there too much going on for people to go, I'm going to go to because what if you're going to the MHSAA playoff thing, there's a Lions game, you go to, maybe you have to just pick one, and the Michigan State game might lose out to that.
But that would exist if Michigan State's game was at Spartan Stadium. It's the same fan base. Right. It's where that fan base is going to enjoy the game.
Especially if the weather's bad that weekend, too. And
where would you rather be if you're at a game?
If I had to go to that state game, I definitely would go to Ford Field. I would like to be indoors. I just despise being in cold weather outdoors for a significant amount of time. Yeah. So I can totally understand. I'm just wondering because, like you said, it all factors in what's the record? How well is Michigan State playing at the time? Will people be disgusted by Michigan State football by that point? There's going to be no one there. That's, the only concern for me.
Yeah,
but I can understand why Michigan State would want to do something like this.
I think there are a couple dangers. One is if, the idea that another fan base could infiltrate if it's not your true home venue. Now, you can do things with tickets to make sure that doesn't happen. It's a home game.
Maryland?
But Maryland can't take over its own stadium. So you don't have to worry about that with Maryland. So when you get these games where it's, I think if it was Penn State again, is it a different conversation? I don't know. I think it being Maryland, though, and I understand the idea that if they win, they'll pack the stadium there. We've seen Michigan State have good crowds on that weekend when they're winning. We saw it in 2021, right, against Penn State. And Michigan State's football team should aspire to have that be a relevant football game with something on the line. I don't think being at Ford Field, though, has to hurt the environment, has to hurt MSU's chances. If anything, if it's just a better – if that's what the players want, that's what the coaches want, and the fans I would bet you pretty overwhelmingly, like 70% of fans who might attend that game are good with it being there. And if you're at that point and it financially makes sense, and it's not that MSU shouldn't try to improve its own game day experience, improve Spartan Stadium, all that stuff. But to me, don't worry about what other people have or what other people's final weekend is. This is the final weekend you've been dealt. Now, how do you get creative and make the most of it? And I think this year it makes sense to have Maryland, the Maryland game at Ford Field. We're going to take a really quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk MSU and Big Ten hoops with Ant Wright. Couch in the Rube, presented by Firekeepers and the Firekeepers Casino and Sportsbook app, and Front 43 Neighborhood Pub and Cask and Company Kitchen and Bar, and of course, our friends at Pure Options Craft Cannabis.
Hey, sports fans, are you tired of the same old routine? Looking for a way to unwind after a long day? Look no further than Pure Options, the premier destination for all of your cannabis needs in Lansing, Detroit, Muskegon, and Mount Pleasant. Whether you're cheering for the Lions, Spartans, or the Wolverines, Pure Options has everything you need to elevate your game day experience. Mention Couch the Rube when you visit Pure Options and get a Pro Grow 8th with a $50 purchase. It's our way of saying thank you for being a loyal listener. Swing by Pure Options today and elevate your cannabis experience to a whole new level. Firekeepers Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play from your phone, tablet, or laptop. Get in on all the football action with pre- and in-game wagering. There's showdowns every week in football that you can't miss. Plus, the college and pro hoops are red hot, and the pucks are cool. Get your first casino deposit and sports wager matched up to $500 each. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Where else can you cheer on your team, enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi, sip on handcrafted cocktails, or one of 46 beers on tap? Take your game day or date night to Cask and Company Kitchen Bar or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. Two amazing places with one awesome blended modern American Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask and Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing.
Buenos.
Find Couch in the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Couch in the Rube, presented by Pure Options Craft Cannabis, and our Wednesday afternoon show brought to you by our friends at Firekeepers Casino and Sportsbook app and Front 43 Neighborhood Pub and Cask and Company Kitchen and Bar. If you are looking for a place to settle up and watch March Madness, watch the conference tournaments, watch the midday hoops, Front 43 and Cask and Company, of course, has you covered. And a great reservation system, especially if you're going at night, at caskandcompany.com, as good as you'll find. You can just go on there, you'll see it, and you can select, do I want a booth, whatever you want, what side of the restaurant you want to be on, all that good stuff, caskandcompany.com. Very pleased now to be joined by somebody whose opinion in basketball I greatly respect, whose interactions on social media I enjoy as much as anything. Ant Wright, who I think when I asked, if he had anything to plug, he said, people know me. They either love me, hate me, or they blocked me. I love that. I love the way you interact with people. Ant, thanks for taking some time.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Can you hear me okay? I
can, absolutely. Yeah. And
all right, cool.
And for people who don't know, Ant's played a little bit. Played at Michigan, played at Toledo for a year. Brings some credibility to all the bullshit that I'm usually spewing here. Want to talk some MSU Big Ten hoops and college hoops with you a little bit. Let me ask you this: with this Michigan State team, at what point? I guess let me ask you this first. What is your overall opinion of them? Like, on the good to great meter, and at what point did that start to shift, if at all, to this team's got something to them?
I wouldn't say great. I said that they're playing great, but I wouldn't call them great. I think they're like one notch below that. I think they've come to this form when they lost 3 or 4, and Izzo found truly who he has, because I think there was Michigan State hadn't lost since like Thanksgiving for like a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I feel that they were playing, but I don't think they were playing great heading into that little rough stretch. And I think they needed that for Izzo to get some questions answered. And in that stretch, he found his closing lineup, he found his alpha, and he just found the right click, the right chemistry on how they're going to close big games. And I think that was more important than anything else that has truly gone on. Like, yeah, defense has been great. Yes, second half adjustments, whatever they do at halftime has been elite. But I think more than anything else, they found who was going to close these big games. Like before, like you could pretty much put anyone in there and they were just going to overwhelm the other team. But over the last 5 games, you couldn't just do that and expect to win. So they found Jace as being the alpha, being the guy who can go get you one. Trey Holloman has always been a 3-and-D like menace, right? But inserting him to also be a spacer for Jace when he's creating, Jaden Akins, just being that floor leader, being that senior. But I think one of the bigger things is the front line. Carson Cooper and Jackson Kohler, I think, have been, you wouldn't put them top 5, I don't think, in the league when it comes to front courts. But dependability in the last 5 minutes, they're probably top 3, which is crazy, right? Because, I think, if you're looking at talent for talent, right, you wouldn't put those two up over Vlad and Kohler, or Vlad and Wolf. You wouldn't put them over Julian Reese and Derek Queen. But they have been so sound to close out games. And I think the UCLA game is when Izzo realized how good those two can be together. And then you have guys coming in off the bench, Fiddler finding his role, Carr just being high motor athlete, gives you some versatility on how you can guard different perimeter players. You kind of saw that against John Tonje, who's all of 6'5", 220, right? So you can't put Trey Holloman on him because of the size difference, but you could put Carr on him, a super athletic freak who's going to give you high motor energy. So sorry about the long-winded answer, but they play 10 guys, legit, right? And so you kind of have to plug and play, right, G? Right? But yeah, you got to be able to plug and play, and they can win in multiple ways for sure. But it comes down to the closing group has been really, really impressive. Very impressive. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've often thought certain types of depth is overrated, right? It's a crutch when you don't want to make tough decisions, when don't want to make tough decisions, and you've got too many guys who are like for like and all that stuff. But their 10 are all different than each other, and that's what's made them interesting and different than most types of depth. Like, if you lose one guy, you actually lose something. It's not like you just don't play. You just play another guy more. And I think that's what's been interesting about their second halves too, and their closing is I think it sometimes still takes them a while to figure out within each matchup what's going to be their best group and how they're going to play it, and then they've got it within their 10 to get there on a given night. If that makes sense.
That makes sense for sure.
Makes sense for sure. So, Jace Richardson, and obviously early on, even the Kansas game, there was something that's like, wait a sec, this guy's a lot better than I think we realized. Yeah. The idea that he can be to get somewhere real in the NCAA tournament, obviously everything's matchup dependent and you're playing one game after another, so it's not like you can't get there exactly as they're doing it. But you got to have guys that make shots, and you usually got to have a guy who can carry you for a game or two here and there, and against big talent. Is he from what you've seen capable of being that guy in March?
I think so. And most importantly, I think Akins being that Robin, and that type of scheme is also very, very good too. So, I mean, we kind of saw it in Maui, you know, how good he can be. And then, you know, he just had flashes where you're just like, man, there's something else there. He can get to another level, you know, and he's been so consistent this year. But, you know, having him, his ascension has really, really torn the roof off of this team's ceiling, in my opinion. You know, having someone who is a pro guard, because I really value pro guards when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Because if things are stalled out, you really don't have anything going, and this team is locked in on you. You could just say, hey, look, Jace, we're just going to keep it real simple. You just got to go out there and be better than the person guarding you. And when you have a pro, you can do things like that, and that gives Tom that extra flexibility.
Which teams in the Big Ten do you think have a chance to be around, like, you know, Final 8? How many of them do you think have a shot?
Final 8? I mean, you know, this is going to sound corny, but, I mean, we've seen 3 11 seeds in the past several years go to Final Fours.
Yeah.
I mean, it all kind of comes down to matchups, and it comes down to how the bracket plays out. You know, we could see the bracket look like one of the toughest, but then after 4 hours, we see certain teams get knocked off. You're like, wait a minute. They only got to get through this, and this. I mean, look at Michigan in 2018.
Yeah.
I think the highest seed they played was a 6, I think, going into that championship game. Like they played 14, a 6, an 8, and Loyola Shy, who was like an 11 or 12 or something. So, like, you got to understand that, like, if you have a good perimeter player, you can go second weekend all day, every day. And that applies to most of these Big Ten schools.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, when I look at the league, too, there are, you know, you talk about the Oregon, you know, you get down to UCLA, some of the teams out west, too, that have had some rough travel and rough stretches, but have shown you in moments that they can be dangerous. Like, those are teams, I mean, what UCLA has going with the big man inside right now, I absolutely love. Oregon's got a special guard, you know, in Shielstad. I mean, like you can see what, you know, I don't know. There to me, there are 6-7 teams that I can see making a run. Now, there's nobody in the Big Ten that I look at and go, that team's not vulnerable. But there are a number of teams that can make it go. Is there, like, when you look at Michigan and they've had a great season. I think Dusty May has done a good job of maximizing everything he has. I think his roster construction was good, his portal fits, all that stuff, you know. And they obviously hit a rough stretch here where they played a lot of games and a lot of days and seemed to have worn down. And, like, is there a rebirth in this season? Is there another gear? Do they get to Indianapolis and take it, you know, and exhale a little bit? Do they have more in them, I guess is the question.
It's going to be hard to prepare for them with, no days rest. It's going to be harder to prepare for them on 1 day's rest if you win that first game of the weekend in the NCAA tournament. Their guard play has got to get way, way better. Since LA, we've seen like just a regression in the Michigan backcourt, and like I'm not sure why that is. But the guard play has got to get way better. One of their freshmen probably have to step up. I think that's got to be LJ Kaysen. But I mean, that's a team where you do have to prepare for Vlad and Wolf, who like once you see them out of conference, nobody's really seen a dynamic like that, which does play into their favor. But Michigan just has not shot the ball well. Part of why Wolf, that whole Area 51, quote-unquote, has struggled a bit the last couple weeks because Michigan's just not shooting well either. They're a good shooting team, but just not shooting the ball well. So they got to be able to make shots because if you're not making shots, now that floor shrinks and you just don't have the spacing for Wolf to do his thing. And next thing you know, very, very turnover prone, more turnovers, more runouts, more possessions for the other team, and you just can't do that in March.
Lassie, who do you most enjoy watching, either in the Big Ten or nationally? I'll let you go either way with that. Just a team that you think, whether it's you think they've got a great chance to make a run, or you just think the type of basketball they play is the most enjoyable to watch right now.
Ooh, most enjoyable to watch. I'm gonna have to go with. I'm gonna have to go with Maryland.
Okay, why?
I'm gonna go with Maryland, because they have the two bigs. I also think Jacoby Gillespie. I know he had a rough game against Michigan State, but that dude is really freaking good.
Yeah.
Rodney Rice, really freaking good, really good shooter. Selden Miguel, streaky, but that starting five, I would put them they're that's a top 12 starting lineup in the country, in my opinion. And as long as they keep guys healthy, and as long as they're staying out of foul trouble, they'll be able to beat anybody, I think.
And
That's a fun group to watch.
I appreciate the time, man, and thanks for making it. And I would urge everybody, if you don't follow It's Ant Wright on Twitter, you should. Ant's got a great follow. He'll engage with you even if you don't agree with him. It's I think you do Twitter about as well as anybody can do it these days. Appreciate the time, man. We'll talk soon.
Hey, man, I have just one question for you.
Yeah.
Are there any new pledges coming around soon? Any new pledges?
You want to talk about an area I am not plugged in? That is it. I am usually the last to know.
I hear that.
Nah, I appreciate you, man.
When they sign, right?
That's it.
Let me know when they sign.
When they sign, and actually probably when they start playing at this point, if they haven't transferred after a year, that's probably the time to start really actually paying attention. So.
For freshman year's an internship.
That's something like that. Yeah, make sure it sticks. No, appreciate you, man. Thanks for taking the time. I'll talk soon.
Anytime, Graham. Later, bye.
That's Ant Wright, and you probably know him well. That's interesting what he said about Maryland there, Jason.
I was surprised by him.
Yeah, I was too. Now they are. I mean,
I'm looking at that Michigan game differently tonight.
Now you're going to take Maryland?
Yeah, mate.
Yeah.
I was going to fade that game, but I don't know.
No, I think Maryland's really
knows
good.
Ball.
I think that was the game that, really changed what I thought about Michigan State and their potential and ceiling. Because they went through that stretch of the 3 games in 7 days and whatever, and they were really good. But each of those teams they beat, Illinois, obviously, they helped that collapse happen for a minute. But Illinois had some stuff going on, right? And Purdue, they wore down, and they did that. That was a really good Purdue team, but they weren't playing at their best. And Michigan, that was the beginning of Michigan struggling a little bit. And although Michigan had played some other close games. But Maryland was a team on the road, and it wasn't just that they won the game and they won on a last-second shot. It was that, 5 minutes in, you were like, Michigan State's probably the better team here. And I didn't think that, they looked like they'd win this game more often than not if they played it even on this court. And then Wisconsin, the same thing kind of plays out, and that's Maryland's really good, and I'll be curious to watch that game tonight. It's interesting what he's talked about with Izzo finding his lineups, his closing lineups, realizing Cooper and Kohler can play together even, and what those guys, because that used to be a problem, the two bigs, and there's it's not just Kohler's 3-point shot really has never come along. To a great extent, He had the one game against Illinois. He's had some moments. It hasn't happened yet. But you do see teams playing him a little differently. We saw that against Wisconsin. You do see him much more confident in how he plays. His rebounding is everything. And then you see Cooper is a better offensive player on those pick and roll and dunks and everything like that. It just works a lot. It just works better than it used to. Those two guys are just a lot better. Let's take another quick break. We come back. We'll talk a little more MSU basketball. I want to get into where this season ranks in most enjoyable MSU basketball seasons. We'll do that when we come back. Couch in the Roof, presented by Pure Options Craft Cannabis, and our Wednesday afternoon show brought to you by our friends at Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app and Front 43 Neighborhood Pub and Cask and Company Kitchen and Bar.
Hey, sports fans, are you tired of the same old routine? Looking for a way to unwind after a long day? Look no further than Pure Options, the premier destination for all of your cannabis needs in Lansing, Detroit, Muskegon, and Mount Pleasant. Whether you're cheering for the Lions, Spartans, or the Wolverines, Pure Options has everything you need to elevate your game day experience. Mention Couch the Rube when you visit Pure Options and get a Pro Grow 8th with a $50 purchase. It's our way of saying thank you for being a loyal listener. Swing by Pure Options today and elevate your cannabis experience to a whole new level. Firekeepers Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play from your phone, tablet, or laptop. Get in on all the football action with pre- and in-game wagering. There's showdowns every week in football that you can't miss. Plus, the college and pro hoops are red hot, and the pucks are cool. Get your first casino deposit and sports wager matched up to $500 each. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Where else can you cheer on your team? Enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi. Sip on handcrafted cocktails or one of 46 beers on tap. Take your game day or date night to Cask and Company Kitchen Bar or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. Two amazing places with one awesome blended modern American Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask and Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing. Ever wonder how comfortable you can be and how good you can look? Put on a Muskox flannel and find out. Muskox has new arrivals for this fall, including the Caper Green Grand Flannel, which even makes Couch look good. Muskox is a Detroit-based flannel company that creates soft and durable flannels made to last a lifetime. They become a great partner with Couch in the Rube, not just because they make us look good and feel good, but because they're good people too, and a socially conscious company. For every $100 purchase, $10 is donated to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation. Muskox flannels are designed with 100% cotton that is ethically sourced and double brushed for softness. Feel the quality and comfort of a Muskox flannel by ordering at GoMuskox.com, where Couch and the Rube listeners can enjoy $15 off their flannel purchase with the promo code HOFF. Come enjoy irresistible, award-winning, handcrafted donuts and locally roasted coffee at Groovy Donuts. Surprise your family or coworkers with special holiday designs and flavors, or put the perfect finishing touch on an event with a custom order. Birthdays, weddings, gender reveals, our friends at Groovy Donuts are your answer. Experience the Groovy Donuts difference for yourself on Lake Lansing Road in East Lansing or in Williamston. Get more information or place an order at groovydonuts.com. If you're looking for a relaxed vibe, great food, and an outstanding beer selection, Midtown Brewing Company in downtown Lansing is your place. Enjoy their famed chicken and waffle fries, fish and chips, or any of their delicious burgers or salads. Midtown Brewing Company also offers 40-plus beers on tap, including ciders and seasonal offerings and daily happy hour specials. The spacious and cozy vibe makes Midtown Brewing Company a perfect place for a beer with a friend, a work lunch, or to watch the games on its big screen TVs. If you'd rather eat at home, Midtown Brewing Company offers a terrific carryout menu and free delivery on orders of $20 or more. Visit MidtownBrewingCompany.net or stop by 402 South Washington in downtown Lansing for the Midtown Brewing Company experience.
Find Couch in the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite, Podcast Addict.
Couch in the Rube, presented by Pure Options Craft Cannabis. If you've never been to Pure Options, I'd urge you to go and get the experience, get the vibe. You will look. They'll help you with whatever questions you have, whether you are the Joe Ingles of weed, like this man sitting over here, Jason Nick, or a little more new to it. They're here to help you, and they've got great offerings, great quality. You can download their app or go to their website, pureoptions.com, to find out location information. 3 in the Lansing area. Got Muskegon, Mount Pleasant, Detroit as well. And they have some great specials coming up later this month, too, with March Madness and surrounding St. Patrick's Day. And we'll get into those as well here in a little bit.
Is Joe Ingles still in the league?
That's a good question.
I don't watch as much NBA as you do, so I
don't
know.
think he is.
No?
Oh, hold on. That's a good question.
Off. Off. Where are you? Off. Oh, there he is.
He's on the Timberwolves. Yeah.
Wow.
Still plays.
All right.
Good for him. He's up there. Born in 87. 37 years old. So, yeah, he's not that old. Still
grizzled vet.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be sad day when Joe Ingles is no longer playing. Wanted to get into this a little more on Michigan State basketball, because one of the things that I've started to realize just being around the discourse, talking to fans through social media, in person, email, everything, is how much everybody is enjoying this MSU basketball season. And how much everybody should, because I don't think these things happen all the time. You don't get this sort of vibes, this sort of going above expectations, this alleviating angst and concern about the program all in one year. There's a lot of good stuff that's coming to year that's coming to this, that's created this, right? A year ago, people wondered if Izzo could ever get the program back to this point. So that's happened. So not only do you alleviate that, but you also get some of the inertia and feelings of an initial rise again, which doesn't usually happen 30 years into somebody's program.
Don't coach my team.
And then you get, within a season, you get this 13-game win streak. You get a team that's likable. Then you get the struggle in the middle, and they come out of this with this 5-game win streak, and now it looks like they're going to win a Big Ten title. There's all sorts of reasons this has been enjoyable. How they play. For a team that doesn't shoot well, it's actually pretty enjoyable basketball, right? The defense, the rebounding, the hallmarks of Izzo at an extreme level. So I was trying to figure out where, in the Izzo tenure, and this doesn't have to go back to Heathcote. We don't need to go back to fire and ice and Respert and snow here in 94, 95.
Yeah, let's go back.
But where this ranks. And there's an argument, I would say, that this season is top 4 all time. And to me, the top 3 seasons, 97, 98, it's just hard to beat, because it was a struggle out of the gate. They're 5-3. They lose to Detroit. They lose to UIC. Things are not good. The question is Izzo going to be the guy? Is he going to get fired after the year? All sorts of things like that. And they wind up riding sophomore Mateen Cleaves in that group to a Big Ten championship, a share of it with Illinois, a 4 seed, a Sweet 16. It was the initial beginning of the rise. The excitement around that was something that I think is hard to duplicate. And I thought for a while that this team had some similarities to that team. This team now is better than that team. That's when we were talking to Ant, and he was talking about how well they were playing in January versus now after that struggle and stumble. The team we've seen the last 5 games is better than that 97, 98 team. The team we saw for parts of January when they were winning, I thought was much more similar in a lot of ways. And so I think that season stands alone. I think it's hard to duplicate that. 98, 99, 99, 2000, during the initial rise, when everything's on its way, leading to Final Four the next year, and then the national championship, and going in this sort of crescendo. I don't think you can ever beat that period of time. I mean, Michigan State was having riots on campus. That's how happy they were about this stuff, right? I'm not saying they've just matured at this point, but I don't know it would take like a college football national championship to lead to that sort of stuff on campus. And maybe the student body has matured. Let's hope. But after that, like, would you go Denzel Valentine's senior year, which I think began with that game against Kansas where he has a triple-double, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, this could be something special. And they had a blip in the middle of the year. They didn't win the Big Ten. That year, for most of the season, though, they were great in the Big Ten tournament, won that until the Middle Tennessee State game. I think people enjoyed immensely.
Yep.
And so I would put that year.
What year is that, 17, 18?
That was 15, 16.
15, 16, okay.
17-18 was one of his most talented teams. They went 30-5, 16-2 in the Big Ten, and I don't think people enjoyed it as much as they thought they would. That was Miles Bridges' sophomore year, the year he came back for, but they couldn't beat Michigan. They never looked as fluid as they were talented collectively. And he always thinks, Izzo, when I say he, and I don't mean him, if you know what that means. Anyway, but Izzo always thinks that team could have won a national title. I don't. I mean, it may be matchups and everything. I just don't think they didn't have the ball in the right people's hands. Cassius Winston was the most efficient player in college basketball per Ken Palm, and yet the ball was not in his hands enough. It was too often in Miles Bridges or Tum Tum Nairn's hand. 2018-19 is up there. 1920, obviously interrupted by COVID and ended with a great final few weeks. But that started with Cassius Winston's brother dying and that, and it was not an easy year. And they went 22-9. But 2018-19, the year before that, Cassius Winston's junior year, I think was a lot of fun for people. Tied for a Big Ten title, get to a Final Four. People enjoyed a lot of that. Now, there were some stumbles and struggles in that year, but I'd put that in that group next. 2013-14, there was so much, and it started out great, but then there was so much angst. I think Draymond Green's senior year, when they weren't supposed to be great, and there's some similarities in that sense to this year, and they wound up winning a Big Ten title, getting a number 1 seed, and obviously Brandon Dawson tore his ACL, and that limited that team. But I think 2011-12 was a team that people really, really enjoyed. They enjoyed how that team played. They enjoyed Draymond as a senior. I would argue that is in that category too. 2008-09, and I wasn't covering the team back then or paying as close attention, but that was sort of another 2007-08 had been sort of a re-rise of the program, and 08-09 they get to the Detroit, and there was a lot of fun around that year. So that belongs in there as well. But that's probably the group.
But when you talk about these past seasons, I mean, this season was kind of up and down. We've had some interesting situations, right? Like, it's great right now, but there's been times during the season where people were like, what is going on here? In those seasons you mentioned, was that the case in some of those?
Every season's had that. Like, every season's had that, and yet...
Even in the 30-5 season.
Well, 30-5, they didn't lose that much, but they were frustrating at times. And they couldn't beat Michigan, which I think drove people nuts. But, like, if you think about the 2018-19 year that I'm... and granted, for some of those years early on, Twitter didn't exist, so the angst was different. People were in a better place.
People are on MySpace,
mentally. Yeah, it was just they screamed into a pillow, and then they just went on with their day, and that was a better way to be. I'm trying to pull this up right now. I apologize. It's not. I know what's going on with Ken Palm. One sec. Give me some Hawk.
Free Ubers.
And I ride and I ride.
Okay, so. That's this. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. 2018-19. This is Cash's senior year, right? Junior year, sorry. That year, as beloved as it was, on Sunday, January 27th, they lose at Purdue. Then they lose at home in overtime to Indiana. And I think that might have been that game with game day here at East Lansing. And then they lose at Illinois. They lose 3 straight. Right, that stretch, right? Late January, early February, like often. And then they turn it around, and they're good. But there's a moment. There's a stumble. There often is. And some of that, I just think it's hard to sustain a certain level of excellence for 30-some games and then not have a team ebb and flow and not hit a point where you're just, it's the dog days and you don't have it on a given night, or you hit a hot team at the wrong time. But they lost. I mean, there was concern, and I wrote columns coming out of that, questioning where things were and finding that mojo again. So even that year, that had that, that level of concern. You go back to 2016, the Denzel Valentine year, until the Middle Tennessee State game. Now, he got hurt late December, so people understood the loss to Iowa. They played without him in late December, where he had just come back. But then they lost to Iowa again, Wisconsin on the road, Nebraska at home, 3 straight games in late January. Same type of deal. They've had these 3-game swoons a lot. So in every season there has been that, and they've had to sort of overcome it, even the most beloved seasons. I don't want to be a victim of and I've experienced these seasons differently too, I should say, because I was a fan back in the late 90s. Like, I was living in town as a teenager. And so how I experience them is different than how I experience them now. And I don't want to be careful about recency bias and things like that, but people have been around a long time, and whenever you got on board, I know there are people, you went to college at MSU in 2010, and that's when your fandom starts or whatever like that. But I would venture a guess that this season ranks arguably up there. Now, everybody may have their own individual season where you were a sophomore and you were in the zone, and that was a lot of fun until you remember it fondly and all that stuff. But I would say outside of those 3 years and that initial rise in the late 90s to 2000, this year competes with anything. And 2016, 2012, 2019, 2009 are probably the years that...
Isn't it tough to
arguable.
compare, though, because you have to wait till after the season and see what happens in the Big Ten tournament, the NCAA tournament.
Well, that's why I'm putting 2016 in there, because that's one of the worst endings ever.
Yeah.
Right? You lose to Middle Tennessee State. Yeah. And yet I think for most of that year, the vibes were insanely positive. People were really into that Valentine team. And if
but that can make it devastating as well.
Oh.
It can throw away the whole season, kind of like the Lions with 15 wins and losing the way they did in the first playoff game that they played. It's like, oh man, they got trounced, and it's like, oh, this season's just worthless now. You can't even look back fondly on it.
Yeah,
after 15 wins.
This Michigan State team loses in a 2-15 matchup in the NCAA tournament, it will be crushing.
Will suck. Yeah.
It doesn't mean people won't have enjoyed the rise and enjoy this team, but it will. Now, the difference between that team in 2016 and this one, if say that were to happen, is that team was led by a lot of seniors and was led by Valentine. It was done. And I don't know what Jace Richardson will decide, but there is a chance that the group coming back next year could be collectively better than this group. I don't know that they will be or not. This team loses in the Sweet 16 or Final 8 or before the Final 4. I still think people will have enjoyed a ton of the season. People were respected because the Big Ten title itself, which they have a chance to they'll clinch a share of at worst at Iowa, and if Michigan loses to Maryland, they can clinch outright. Like the meaning of that Big Ten title, it is so meaningful to this program because of what's happened the last 4 years, because of what the Big Ten title has always meant to Izzo. And I think that is having that thing that's a banner that will represent this team forever and something people can hold on to. It doesn't negate the need for the NCAA tournament to not validate things, but prolong the joy and try to get back. Because Michigan State's history under Izzo and the legend of Izzo is twofold. It's Big Ten success and Final Fours, right? And whether they could ever get back to this point was in real question, and they've done it at the Big Ten level. And they've done it when the Big Ten went to 18 teams. And they've done it in a year where not everything went perfectly all the time, and they had to win some really hard games to do it. It has been earned. And I think everybody respects it at this point. The next step is, can you do it on the national scale? And that's the other place he's done it. If this team were to also get to a Final Four, and I know everybody wants Izzo's second national championship, and he does too, but let's say they get to a Final Four and lose and run into Auburn or somebody who's just better than them, or they just don't play well. They lose in the Final Four after winning a Big Ten title. I think this year that would, at that point, put this year probably only after those 3 years in the late 90s. And 2008-09, other people can tell me how they felt throughout the season. I didn't experience the same way. I was covering a different team. I was paying attention to some degree. I helped cover that run for Booth newspapers. But until and everybody was really, the whole Detroit thing, and that was a really big the wins in Indianapolis, the Goran Suton playing well. So maybe that one would be the other one. But if this team gets to a Final Four, this goes up definitely in the top, 5, 6 seasons of all time under Izzo. Yeah, without question. And just in terms of pure enjoyment. And I'd be curious where other people what other people think about that. We will not have a Friday show this week. We were thinking about trying to do it from the road. I just don't know where I'm going to be and what's going to happen. I may be going to Indianapolis to cover the Michigan State women in the Big Ten tournament if they win Thursday night in their own game against Iowa. And if they don't, I'll be back here, but I don't know.
Are you driving to Iowa?
I'm driving to Iowa.
With Solari?
No, myself.
Oh.
Yeah.
Things
Graham.
Just myself and my thoughts, It's the best way.
It's quite a drive.
The way to drive to
Holy hell.
Drive to Iowa. It's a long drive. It's closer than Marquette. I will point that out to people when I go to Marquette.
It's just nothing though, really.
It's not the most
very scenic,
Not the most entertaining drive.
Yeah.
But I've done it many a time. I don't mind it. And I don't know how late I'll be up if Michigan State wins a Big Ten title and there's a really good column coming out of Thursday night, So it's just going to be hard for us to guarantee we can do a show. So we will be back on Monday with get into our takes and yours. And I know a couple people had already submitted questions, and we'll include the questions with takes if you'd prefer that. If you have a question over a take, we can do that on Monday, absolutely as well. We appreciate all of you listening to us. I appreciate Ant Wright coming on. Appreciate our sponsors listening to me stumble through their names today. I don't know what's going on. I need some pure options in my system real quick. We appreciate Front 43 and Cask and Company, and of course Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app. Download the app today. Enjoy Front 43 and Cask and Company. Great weekend for it, and we'll be back on Monday. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch to the Roof.